So we've got Kay Smith joining us today, and Lindsay as well. We can get Lindsay sorted. So Kay is from New South Wales, from Mile Lake, and they, with her husband John, commissioned robots at the start of 2022. They've got 3 robots milking 180 cows on the robot, but they also have a conventional parlour on the same property, and they're actually completely off-grid. They're 100% run by solar energy and use batteries and generator. And then hopefully we can get Lindsay online again shortly. And Lindsay's from Victoria. He has used robots since 2011, milks up to 280 cows at the moment with the multi-box in Centec multi-box of 2 robots and 4 boxes. So Kay, I'll get you to pop your camera on if you're able to. And we'll get started. All right, just unmute yourself. Try again. Yep, that should be it. Yep, good. That's perfect. Good, good. All right, thanks, Kay.
Thanks, Tori. Not many people talk about where I come from because it's too hard to say. So it's a little town called Bulahdelah, which is on the Mile Lakes, mid-north coast, New South Wales. So for a paragraph of background, our farm was purchased in the 1960s, 770 hectares of mixed country. The area receives a total annual rainfall of approximately 1,400 mil, although we have had 140 in the last 8 days and 240 this month. So outside we have a little bit of mud. The management of our business has recently been transitioned and is now run by our son Andrew. The dairy enterprise is currently milking 400 cows across 2 dairies, and that's because 50 cows arrived yesterday. The dairy platforms are around 120 hectares each at opposite ends of the farm. So 4 years ago, it was recognised that our old tenor-side herringbone dairy was not adequate to allow the business to grow to the size we envisaged and to remain profitable in today's environment. So a consultative process with the family and outside experts, including Wayne Clark, resulted in the decision to build a second dairy on the property, and that it would be robotic. As it was to be built on a greenfield site, cost considerations for energy soon revealed that we should consider being totally off-grid and solar powered. The new dairy construction started in July 19, and the first cows were milked there early in January 20. I can't stress enough the enormous contribution that the steering committee process added to our decision-making ability and the confidence to move forward. Wayne Clark told me very early in the piece that I'd have to make decisions, or we would have to make decisions every day about things we knew nothing about. And I thought, oh, Wayne, that won't happen to me. Well, he was right. Every day he was right. Solar power, so that's where we went. The dairy is not connected to the grid and operates entirely on solar power backed up by a generator. An issue we had to confront very early was that we had no experience with solar powers and very little knowledge. And it was a nightmare trying to compare and evaluate quotes, but we got there. We did need help from an energy consultant, and a great local mate who had been living off-grid for more than 20 years. So in the end, our solar energy system is 100 kilowatts, and it has many components, which includes, but not limited to, 318 roof-mounted panels. We had to build a machinery shed to take some of those panels, but the machinery shed's very handy anyway. It has 3 tri-power inverters. It has 12 Sunny Island inverters, and the inverters, of course, change power between DC and AC and back again. It has 8 banks of lithium-ion batteries at 16 kilowatt hours each, giving a total of 128 kilowatts of storage. Additional equipment was also installed to assist with energy efficiency, including heat recovery systems and 10,000 litres of glycol, which is cooled during the day to below zero and then recirculates at night for milk cooling. There are some little orange gadgets, but I can't remember the name of them, and they're installed on the wiring of individual components, which monitor the power usage of those components. We can view that data on our computers in live time via a system called Power Radar, and that obviously helps guide future energy decisions. The whole system is backed up by an 80 kVA diesel generator, which automatically switches on and off as required. It is set to come on when battery voltage gets down to 49 volts and cuts off when the voltage is up to 53. The generator can power the dairy and recharge the batteries at the same time. It is important to note that a generator would have been required even if the dairy was on grid, as the grid power is relatively unreliable, lots of downtime. Of course, generator use varies according to the weather. In the worst case, with no solar power being produced, the generator would run 4 times a day at 1.5 hours each time, so 6 hours total per day. Best case scenario is no generator use, which is quite common. Over the almost 2 years of operation, we have averaged a little less than 2 hours per day of generator use. Heating water is one of the largest consumers of power, and one of our system washes happens at 4 AM, and that often triggers generator usage. So we are now considering installing an additional hot water system to increase our hot water storage, and this would overcome that issue and would be far more cost effective than the installation of additional batteries. So to go to some usage cost comparisons. Back in 2019, our energy consultant did some projections. And as a matter of fact, let me do some calculations. In 2019, I was about 64, and he did projections for the next 30 years. And I said, Nick, I think the next 6 or 7 years will be far enough. But anyway, away he went and he did them for 30 years. Now, there are lots of variables. It's very hard to predict how much grid electricity is going to cost in 5 years' time, let alone 10 years' time. It's hard to predict how much batteries will cost, etc. But those projections back in 2019 said that our electricity bill on grid for a robotic dairy would be about $45,000 per year, which is $124 a day. As it turns out, 2 years later, those projections were very close to the mark, as our current usage is around 400 kilowatt hours per day at the robotic dairy, and the current cost of power at our other dairy is 30 cents a kilowatt. So that calculation gives $120 per day if we were using grid power, as opposed to Nick's $124 per day. So go back to our worst day. Whoops. somebody's...
Looks like my phone's not going to work. I'll log out again if it's doing that.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get on DA's website, but yeah.
Back again.
Yeah.
Lindsay, I hope Lindsay can get back on because I'm nearly finished. Go back to our worst day in terms of generator use, which is 6 hours a day times 16 litres of diesel per hour that the generator uses, times $1.17 net, that's after rebate, per litre for diesel, which is what we're currently paying. That all multiplied out gives $112 per day, worst case scenario. So still slightly better than grid power. Our average day at 2 hours a day times the 16 litres times the $1.17 is $37.44 a day. And our best day, of course, is 0. So our system, you know, works beautifully. I've got to say, I sometimes wonder if the UPSs that are installed everywhere down there are working, because we never hear them beep. The solar power is so smooth, so clean, and causes us no problem. So overall, and remembering it was a greenfield site with no existing grid connection to the site, our energy system will pay for itself in less than 5 years, and the solar components have minimum warranties of 8 years. This equation does take into account that we would have had to pay to bring grid power to the site. And I can tell you that one quote I got was $100,000 to bring high voltage power to a pole in the paddock. And then there would have been additional costs after that. So in conclusion, are we satisfied with the system, and would we do it again at that site? The answer is yes to both. Our house is at the same end of the farm as the robotic dairy. We had a recent blackout in the last couple of months, which lasted more than 40 hours. Our house had no power. It was really good to be able to go to the dairy to shower and eat and store food in the fridge. Thanks, Tori.
Thanks, Kay. Really interesting and very fascinating, combining solar, like 100% solar with a dairy and AMS. You're operating 24/7. We'll hold off questions till the end. It looks like Lindsay's just jumped on the line. So Lindsay, we'll give you a try again if that's all right. If you pop your camera and unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me, everyone?
Yep, can hear you. Is the camera available, or I will keep it just at audio for now?
Camera is available. Share my webcam. Okay, there you are. Is that it? Yep.
Yes, lovely. Thanks. Glad to have you on board, Lindsay.
Yeah, moving here because the internet at homes was suspect, but Dairy Australia's internet wouldn't let me on. So yeah, we eventually got there. Okay, I'll go through quickly because I know we're running a little bit late. I've just got this early slide up, and Tori worried me because she's combined slides. I run the Incitec double box unit, and as you see with the slide next to it, the 3 double box units are set up in a quadrant, and one unit's not working at the moment, it's greyed out. So Tori, you can move to the next screen. Slide. Okay, as part of what was happening, we had strategic plans in place. We had been using solar for a little while and kept adding more and more to the system, but we had strategies in place to eventually go very close to off-grid and to update our refrigeration heating system. 2 government grants became available that enabled it to happen quicker, all within the space of 6 months. So this was the change to the cooling system. We ended up swapping everything around from being a large refrigeration, 2 large refrigeration units, about 13.5 horsepower in compressor power, down to 4 horsepower in compressor power. We changed all the refrigeration circuits to chill water. So we reduced our total refrigeration gas from 40 kilos down to 6, as well as putting in these 2 small water chillers. Now, they're not water chillers that you buy off the shelf, because we didn't go that route. We went the route of putting coils within the buffer tanks. It eliminated freezing problems, eliminated some control circuits, extra pumps. So as you can see, the milk comes in the top left-hand side, goes through a cooling tower cooler, bulk chilled water tank, through cooler 3, cooler 4, and into one of 3 vats. And then each progression is a different temperature. Cooling water is at whatever the cooling tower is at. The bulk tank at the moment is sitting around about 10 degrees. Cooler 3 sits at 5 degrees in that buffer tank, and the cooler 4 sits at about 2 degrees, 2.2 degrees in that buffer tank. As you see, there's 2 water chillers running it, or what I call water chillers. At the same time, they're also heating our hot water, preheating our hot water. So you see the cold water comes in from the side. First one, it's getting to nearly 30 degrees at the moment. The next one's getting to 40. Next one at the moment is hitting about 55. And the last 2 are electrical, which we get up to. So you see there's not much left to get to 65, 90 degrees by the time it goes to the robots. There's the greyed out area there. As you see, I've got solar marked in various points. Solar's providing all our hot water at the moment. We don't use any night tariff for hot water anymore. You see 2 solar marked at the buffer tanks. When we've got excess solar, it's obviously chilling the bulk tank. Now, the bulk tank is 26,000 litres, and just as the interest, for every degree change in that tank is equivalent to 29 kilowatt hours. So you can see it's a large battery in itself. And when it's down, the temperature should do a real good job. As you see, the milk enters the vat between 4 and 6 degrees at the moment, sometimes less than 4. And just recently, we just found out that cooler 2 is not working as well as it should be. The approach temperature needs to be improved. So that was just the heating and part of where we put excess solar. So if you go to the next slide, Tori. As you can see, the photo on the left-hand side, that's a south-facing roof, and we have put the panels on it, 45 degrees facing west, 45 degrees facing east. So if you go look at the second photo on the left, the shed that you just looked at is on the right-hand side. As you see, there's panels on the western wall of that shed. There is some more panels on the little shed above the cows, and the new stuff that's just been put in is all on the shed on the left-hand side. So up on top of the roof there, you've got approximately 10 kilowatts facing east, 10 kilowatts facing west. There's another 8 kilowatts on that western wall, and there's another 16 kilowatts I was hoping would be installed by now of second-hand panels to go on the rest of that western wall. So rather than face panels north like most people do, we did the number crunching around what was best to suit our job. And if you look in the left hand, there is a wind turbine there. That's turbine number 2 I've experimented with. There's a third one to turn up in a few days' time that should be better than that one. And if that's the case, there'll be another 4 turbines put along the wall. Just to show you what the difference is. So this is the panel. We didn't install 40 kilowatts. That was the number crunching done at the time. The one that peaks the highest, as you see, even with 40 kilowatts, you're only going to get about 32 kilowatts out of the panels, facing north, and also tilted up to 37 degrees. As you see, it's a big peak in the middle of the day. For us with AMS, we don't need that peak. We want consistent power, flat power. So as part of it, the purple line represents the addition of the mauve, red line, and the green line. So the difference there is that's one of those two is the 20 kilowatts facing east, 45 degrees, the other is face. So you change where the yield of the power, and as you can see, if you look at between 5 and 7 down the bottom line, there's a lot of power generated by those east panels compared to facing north. The same happens in the afternoon. So that's hence why we've gone for a different strategy of where to face the panels. This is the master plan of the power system. I basically run 3 microgrids now. So you'll see over on the right-hand side, microgrid A, microgrid B, microgrid C. They each have their own solar panels, all hooked to a common lithium trionate battery, wind turbine on top. There is a connection to the grid with hybrid inverters. But technically, our only way we get power from the grid to the robots at the moment is through the DC power supplies. None of the robots are connected directly to the grid. I do all my own power conditioning running off grid and isolate. I could have made the 3 microgrids as one big microgrid, but just to add more reliability and redundancy to the system, it's all plug and play. So should one microgrid go down for some reason, my only worker I have at home knows that he can ring up and he'll just swap plugs over to run it all on microgrid B, for example. Microgrid C is greyed out. It doesn't show it being greyed out here, but it was greyed out. It's what will come with the 16 kilowatts going on the western wall. So pretty much redundancy, backup, full system. We do have a diesel generator that runs there at the moment if needed. It can power the robots directly, but we actually go through the power supplies. The power supplies can pull power from the grid even right down to 160 volts. While everyone else is browning out, burning out, I can keep running with full power. So a bit of the way of doing it. If I looked at yesterday's power usage, according to my retailer, I used exactly $10 in net power for the day. I did export a fair bit. I also imported some. Most of that import would have come to the house on the bottom left-hand corner. That's greyed out at the moment because it will be moved to the hybrid inverters that are sitting on the grid side shortly. In the end, pretty much we will run most of the year with very little peak power being used. In winter, I suspect we'll charge the batteries up a little bit in the morning to just cater that first bit of peak power in the morning. But at the moment, as days like we've got today, we were off the grid from 7 o'clock this morning and won't go back onto the grid. Might not even need to go back onto the grid tonight. They'll run on the batteries right through. So that's basically it in a nutshell. There's another slide, Tori. No, that was it. So I've been quick through that and give you an idea. When I first started doing this phase conversion from single phase to 3-phase was worth something like $1,000 a kilowatt to do. At the current prices, it's 200 kilowatts to do. So costs have dropped quite dramatically to be able to do anything like this in modules of 15 kilowatts. So, yep, I've been very quick because I know I'm running late. So open it up for question time.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Kay. Again, some wonderful presentations. Kay, I'll get you to pop your camera back on for us to join the question answer session. We've only got time for probably 1 or 2 questions, but just before we jump into that, I think it's important to consider that the energy in audits that we did in AMS farms several years ago showed that energy or cost of electricity was elevated above that of conventional systems in the sense that often people are swapping over to or transferring over some of their existing infrastructure and equipment. But because the AMS doesn't have those peak periods of use in the same way that a conventional parlour does, that some of the equipment was oversized or not quite suited to the AMS system. So that's another consideration, aside from a solar, to think about when considering AMS is the sort of equipment you're using and for your day-to-day costs and things. So Lindsay sort of alluded to this as well, that AMS is sort of more suited to solar in the sense that because there's those reduced peaks in need, you're operating more consistently throughout the day, but not as concentrated. Solar is quite suited. So it's great to be able to hear from Lindsay and Kay on how your system is using solar. So we just have one question, which is in relation to repairs and maintenance of the system. I suppose there's some schools of thought out there that don't support or feel that AMS is suitable on solar, or that you're not able to run 100% on solar, which obviously, Kay, your system is doing, so it is possible to do it. Have you got any thoughts on the repairs and maintenance and I suppose the technical side of the system?
So, Tori, so far our repairs and maintenance bill 2 years down the track is zero. We haven't had any issues at all. Mind you, 4 weeks before we opened, I had a person who worked for an energy provider, grid energy provider, tell me that it was impossible to run a dairy off-grid, that three-phase power wouldn't stand up to the challenge, etc., etc. And my answer to him was, well, I know nothing, but we'll find out in 4 weeks when we start to milk cows. I'd be happy if he was listening today.
Sorry, I'm 10 years down from the first microgrid I built. Repairs and maintenance zero. The only changes that have happened in that time frame is the batteries have changed. I did start originally with a second-hand lead acid bank. I went to a lead carbon bank that ended up getting recalled. Up till 18 months ago, I would not have recommended the lithium storage system at all for us because of their inherent problems. However, lithium trionate batteries are different chemistry. They have a lot higher power rating and do not have the runaway thermal problems that the other lithium chemistries have, which we are familiar with what happened to the Samsung phones when they started getting on fire. Yes. So they're just things to be wary of. As I said, my oldest system's 10 years old now.
Thank you. Thank you both for that. I'm really sorry that we can't get on to any more of the questions, but we will need to move on to our final session today. Again, a big thank you to yourself, Lindsay and Kay, for joining us and sharing your knowledge and experience, and yeah, contributing to what's been an amazing showcase so far. So thank you.
Thanks, Tori.
Thank you.